TG Geeks, episode 249, November 25th, 2019. Writing it all down. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I am Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, the weekend before Thanksgiving.
And I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from a very gloomy, it's gloomy out there, yeah. Phoenix, Arizona.
And I have the next week off. Yay!
Oh, happy for you.
Yeah.
I only get 2 days.
And I don't have to cook this year.
No, you don't. No, we're going out.
But I'm going to make a pumpkin pie anyway. I'm going to go.
Well, because you want to.
I'm going to go buy the pumpkin. I'm going to roast the pumpkin, make the puree, and then make the pies.
You're going to go all Martha Stewart on us.
Well, of course. I have to. That's the best way to do it.
That's right.
And, well, let's just get on with this.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, this time we've got Roger Q. Mason, who is a playwright, a screenwriter, a writer, a filmmaker, all those things. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk to him about a new film and play that he's got coming out. Then we're going to have our birthday shout-outs, our featured podcast of the week, and everybody's favorite feedback. And we have a few shout-outs. And if we have some time in a second segment, we're going to talk about something that we experienced yesterday, on Saturday, actually. And we're recording this on Sunday. Then we're going to have our weekly recap and our usual shout-outs. So we're going to get right to our interview segment. And this time we welcome to the microphone Roger Q. Mason, who is a writer, director, performer, jack of all trades, I guess you could say. Welcome to the show, Roger.
Thank you so much. Well, I prefer to call myself a showgirl who writes it down.
I see.
And what I mean by that is that I write for theater, television, and film, and up till recently, I'd say within the last year, I wanted to be considered a serious writer. And so what that meant for me was sort of divorcing myself from an earlier sensibility, which was that I started out as a performer. My grandmother, I grew up in an intergenerational household, and my grandmother and her two sisters, my aunts, were part of our household and our family. And these three women were very fascinating. They were really pioneer women from Del Valley, Texas, outside of Austin. And two of the three of them went to college. They were half black and half Irish. So two of them went to not only college, but HBCUs, and specifically HBCUs that would let in women. In the teens, that would let in women in the teens, the 19 teens. And so one of the many skills that they learned was elocution. And so I remember from a very early age having to stand before our yellow Formica table at home in Los Angeles and recite pretty much a good majority of Langston Hughes's collected poems.
Wow.
And then I remember having to do Mary McLeod Bethune's My Last Will and Testament. And then, after Clinton got elected, we added a lot of the work of Maya Angelou. So I was sort of a poetic interpreter.
Interesting.
And I did a lot of this work not only at home in front of the Formica table, but also my grandmother and aunts were part of a couple of different sororities and literary groups of the period. And this talk about the late 80s, early 90s. And so I would go around essentially on tour and perform for them. So I grew up doing that work. And then when I was in elementary and middle school, I discovered singing. So then I put the two together. So so the idea of showmanship, as you can see, started very early on.
Right.
And when I went to undergrad, for whatever the reason, I felt like I needed to be more academic. So I went to Princeton for undergrad, and I got there and I felt like, well, I need to be a person of letters. And the theater is a very jealous mistress. So I was studying theater, studying specifically writing for theater. But a few things happened along the way. One of the things was, politically speaking, at the time, because, it gets political and gets crazy, even in undergrad when you're trying to do student theater,
right?
Let alone breaking into the show business. But I noticed at the time that folks that were willing to direct and produce were able to infiltrate these programs more easily. So I got myself involved with various student groups in undergrad as a director and as a producer, because essentially those were facilitator roles. And I found that in those capacities, I was able to meld a kind of artistry with a political side. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit to high school, because one of the things that I discovered when I was in high school was that I loved writing these short stories and these poems, which were basically character sketches and observations about human behavior. And I loved to spy on people and see how the little changes in body language could have huge implications for their interpersonal relations. I was basically a nosy so-and-so. And I just loved watching and observing and analyzing that. So there's the poet who is a voyeur. There's the politician who's trying to get ahead in college. And then there's the performer. So how to reconcile these different lives? Well, that takes a lot of time. So I graduated and sort of had written a couple of plays in undergrad, and then came out to Los Angeles, where I'm from, had a series of existential crises, and eventually ended up going to Northwestern for my MFA. It was about 5 years ago. And while I was in Chicago at Northwestern, I found myself once again amongst performers. Now, my head is stubborn. I still wanted to be a serious writer, so I was still sitting down and typing and having this relationship to writing. But I would watch these performers, particularly these queer performers. Chicago at that time, and I think still this is true, had this beautiful collective of queer performers who were pushing genre, pushing form, inquiring politically and socially through art. And I started writing work inspired by the energy of that community.
Interesting.
And then I came back to Los Angeles in 2016, and through a series of various events, I had to go on stage for somebody else for a show I was writing. And I was reunited with a person that I hadn't seen maybe since middle school, which was that little showgirl.
Right.
And now I was writing it down. And all of a sudden, the work became so much richer because I wasn't going to get up there and look stupid.
Suddenly, of course not.
Suddenly, so, when you put it on somebody else, you can be heady and intellectual, but honey, it has to live in your body. And I think there's a good lesson to be learned for writers. And this is why many times you'll hear people saying to writers, take an acting class, because you have to be reminded that you are writing a blueprint. I'm talking specifically for theater, we'll get into film and what I discovered there in a second. But for theater, you're writing a blueprint for an event that will be manifested in 3 dimensions by a human body. Mm-hmm. So you have to write from the place of writing for those bodies and for those people, not just writing in the abstract or using dialogue, syllogistically or metaphorically or what abstractly. No, this is a visceral experience.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think when you get in there as a writer who's also performing, it really changes your aesthetic. It becomes much more muscular. It becomes much more impulsive. It becomes much more immediate. So how did I get into film?
Right. And that's kind of how we got connected with you is this film that has made its debut, correct? It's made its world premiere, and it's still doing the film festival circuit, correct?
Well, let me say this.
Okay.
So I'll start by giving a little context for the film. The film is called Softer, and it is a queer Civil War short that imagines the last liaison, so to speak. I was told it was a PG show, so I'm going to keep it cute. Mm-hmm. The last liaison between Charlie, who is a young slave master, and his body servant, Ishmael. And it's Emancipation Day, and so it's 1865, and we've placed it in Georgia, which I think was one of the last states to ratify the emancipation. So we did that for symbolic purposes. They held on as long as they could.
Well, of course they did.
Right.
I think it wasn't at Alabama that just recently...
we still working on these emancipations.
Exactly.
We're still working on. There's certain factions that 150 years later, I don't think the document is quite taken hold in certain
places. Yes,
in certain places, in certain social circles and political what have you. But so this film is about liberation, and it's about new beginnings. Because also the other reason we chose Georgia is that was one of the hardest hit of the states.
Right.
Everything was destroyed. So it's literally a new world that has to be born. So in this short film, it takes place, it's a chamber drama, and it takes place in Ishmael's quarters. And essentially what happens is Charlie has to release him. So he brings him his freedom papers, and everything goes downhill from there. And so there's a power reversal, between the two parties, and there are questions of self-determination, and we talk a little bit about gender and sexual fluidity in it as well, and a couple other things. And so a very brave and generous and wonderful film festival called Outshine took the leap and invited us to premiere the film in Florida. And I say that because I'm getting the sense that because we have such a perilous relationship to that history, the history of slavery, it's sort of a risky film to program.
Right.
And there are a lot of factors involved with that. I mean, you don't often see period films that are programmed, and you certainly, the sort of legacy of slavery is a very polarizing thing to show. And we do it with a fairly even hand because we really want both of the characters to be as complicated and three-dimensional as they can be. So it's not a very binary, we're going to villainize the slave master. It's a little bit, it makes you work as an audience member. And so I think the combination of the tone and the subject matter and all that make it a film where it takes programmers that are willing to take a leap and a risk. And so what we're finding is there's a community of programmers that are doing that work. And those are the folks that are coming out and supporting and embracing this film. And they're the right places for it. So I learned a lot about the marketplace and about film taste, and particularly independent film taste, making and then politicking on behalf of this movie. And it taught me a lot about the types of work that are made and the types of work that get immediately backed and the types of work where you really have to find community behind them. So it's been an excellent lesson. And, it continues. We're still on the circuit. It's a multi-year circuit. So there are a lot of places we've sent to, with folks that are very enthusiastic about the work. So more is to come.
Right.
But the journey thus far, I can say, has been one of really knowing that what we're doing is achieving its goal, which is to have the uncomfortable and challenging and not always easily digestible conversation about race in America.
Right. I stand by that strongly. I appreciate that you've taken this position. I've always been of the belief that the best form of art is the kind that leaves the viewer transformed. They're not the same person when they walked into the theater or the movie house or whatever, as opposed to when they walked out. I mean, it can be entertaining. There's nothing wrong with entertaining, but to walk out and be changed by what you've experienced.
And change is difficult, and change is sometimes exceedingly slow moving. Yes. So it was very interesting, and I get this response from my work, not only in film, but also in theater. When you've got, it's so interesting. I had a play called The White Dress. And the first draft of the play, the ending was a sort of stalemate reunion between the two lovers. So the play ended sort of in a stalemate not ending. And people, because of the work they had seen before that moment, were very appreciative, very respectful of the work. But you could tell that they weren't getting the emotional cotton candy that they needed, that immediate emotional gratification. So I changed it. In the next iteration of that play, The White Dress, what I did was I made the ending a happy ending. I wanted to see what happened. The relationship stalemate sort of occurs, and then a surprise reunion serves as the coda to the play. Mm-hmm. The mother in the piece, who was the source of so much of the genderqueer shaming earlier in the work of this coming-of-age piece, comes back and reconciles. And it's about affirmation and mutual love and freedom of expression and all those fabulous things. And, honey, people left that theater. They leapt to their feet. They were so joyous, rapturous. It's amazing what an ending can do. And nothing else changed in the script except the ending. And now they're talking about this is an amazing run and you need to extend this play and what have you. So what I learn every time I write one of these works is there's a certain amount of, I'm going to use this term, psychological game playing.
Yeah,
goes on.
Yeah.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? I know you're, in a way, you're playing on the emotionality of your audience.
Right.
And I found that if you can have an ending, not a neat ending, because people can smell contrivance, but an
well,
ending
of course.
that, and that doesn't work either. But an ending to a piece that somehow is affirming in some way to your audience. You're doing something for them. They'll forgive many of the faux pas and mistakes that occurred before.
Yes.
It sort of makes it work. Whereas audiences that are having to digest a more esoteric or complicated ending, they start to nitpick. So the thing is, you have a choice to make as a narrative storyteller. what kind of relationship do you want to have to your audience? And that's where tone and voice and perspective and sometimes bravery come into the room. Because sometimes, to hell with it. You really want. So what I notice is you have to sometimes you have to decide to be brave. Sometimes you have to decide if you're going to challenge folks, and maybe you won't be the populist hit of the moment, and maybe you won't get all of those awards now. But sometimes you have to do that work. Sometimes you need to challenge audiences in order to help them grow. And I really do think that what we're doing through our work as creative content innovators is we're teaching people new kinds of artistic and cultural literacy. Right. I really think we have an obligation to do that. We have an obligation to teach people how to read themselves, how to read the world around them, and be actively engaged. If anything has come out of the wokeness, folks, you cannot sit down. You cannot take it lightly. Everything is not to have a rosy-colored ending. Everything is not to be spoon-fed to you. Sometimes, honey, we're going to have to work for it.
Right.
And I think that it's newer for folks because we're so accustomed, especially now with the internet and social media, to instant gratification. So it's a brave and sometimes lonely road to travel down when you're doing this kind of work.
Right.
Because you're not always going to get praised for it, and you're not always going to get programmed immediately, and you're not always going to win.
Right.
But you are winning in the end because you made somebody think. You made somebody expand their possibilities of cognition. And there is power and there is grace and there is importance in that. Mm-hmm. I truly believe it. It was so interesting when the film debuted and we were in Florida. And I knew this was one of my more challenging works. It wasn't one of these, I didn't have the cotton candy. And there was that pause at the end. And I said, oh, Lord, I know this pause. It's the pause of synapses and being uncomfortable.
Right. And then
to make electromagnetic connections.
Mm-hmm.
And I hearty applause afterwards. And a lot of these audience members came up to me, privately and said, well, that was very nice work. I really appreciated that. But you could just tell that unlike some of the other movies where folks were kind of like it was immediate, you could tell I made them work.
Right. And
you could tell.
And sometimes film festivals, it's the long game. I mean, I know some people that have their films in film festivals for a year or more, and they do multiple film festivals. But you have something else going on with this same story, correct?
Yeah. So what I can say, first of all, to go back to the film for a second, because we didn't even say who was in it or anything.
That's true.
This film is something that I feel extraordinarily proud of because it was a reunion between my very dear friend and collaborator and me. His name is Lovell Holder, and he's the director of the picture. And this was really the grounds on which he and I reunited. We had, we went to undergrad together, and then, everyone goes their separate ways. And I had shared this movie with him. I had shared the play with him, the script for the play. And he was so moved and taken by that he said, we have to make a movie out of this. And it was sort of our reunion piece. So the actors that we have involved, Rick Cosnett, who was on The Flash, and Terrell Carter, who's on Empire.
Right.
You could find two more generous and dedicated actors. I mean, these guys have stood behind this movie because, it takes ever so long to raise the funds and then to make a film and then to get it out on the market. These guys are what we say, in certain urban circles, they're down for whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're so supportive and so eager to share this story and get it out there. And the way that this film was put together, even, especially the cinematography and Lovell's direction, as well as the editing of this movie, they really help, I think, to further punctuate the complicated and episodic and sometimes difficult nature of this relationship. And I think what they've achieved very intelligently is they have created a film product where theme, tone, and execution meet. What I mean by that is this is a complicated and power reversal laden story. And the way that it's shot and the way that it's edited mirrors and bolsters that aesthetic intent. And that, to me, is really the joy of this piece, to watch as an audience member. Now, you mentioned the play, and the play is the source of inspiration for this piece, and it also was the font of my reunion with my dear friend and collaborator, Lovell. The play is an interesting story. The play, I was in Northwestern's MFA program, and I had been writing quite a few sort of more esoteric pieces, as I am wont to do in my time. And I said to myself, let me just write one of these good old-fashioned dramas and see what happens in this room with these folks. And so I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a little chamber drama, the classic setup. We're in a room, a locked room. Now who's going to stay and who's going to be allowed to leave? Very classic. And I wrote this play, Softer, and it took me maybe a day. And the play has not changed much since the original draft. Now in the play, the characters are younger. They're 18. So in the film, we aged it up. So the abuse took place for a longer period of time. And the relationship was even more fraught. In the play is much more about youth and about coming into the age of majority. So when we did the film, we had to adapt it somewhat to work with the lived experience and the reality of who we were working with, the actors. Right. Mm-hmm. But in the original play, what I was very interested in was, what does it mean for these two individuals who are just coming into freedom, just coming into a new civic order, just coming into a new version of their statehood, and just coming into adulthood and sexual fruition? What does it mean for them to navigate sexuality, power, control of one's own body? What does it mean for them to discover those things for the first time and rediscover them anew? All over the course of these few minutes where everything is going to change for both of them. The slave will become free. The master will no longer be able to exploit someone for pleasure or for service. And both of them will have to reconcile with their sexual lives, because what life could Ishmael, the slave, have had it not been defined for him by the master? Is he even attracted to men? Is he attracted? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then Charlie, of course, is 18, and the mother has betrothed him to be married to Miss Anne. And Miss Anne is in the, and here's Miss Anne. Miss Anne is in the parlor. Wait. Right. So there's a ticking time bomb in the other room. What you gonna do with Miss Anne? And there's a line in the play. You're gonna have to learn her body good. You're gonna have to learn what makes her scream and moan, because one day you're gonna have to fill her up with babies. It's this kind of obligation, this corporeal obligation that negates what he really wants. So it's a very interesting and complicated series of relationships that that are happening in the moment right now for these two 18-year-old kids. And, these are questions that that we're asking now, and yet somehow they were able to translate quite well to a historical setting. So from that play, the film sort of evolved, but it became so much more about what's not said, because film is so visual and so behavior based. So for me, it was very interesting to now take all of these arias that were in the play and all of this florid language, and then how can I fit it in behavior? So now I returned, you see, to that 17-year-old self that was writing those little behavior sketches. So what I'm saying is that I came full circle. And by starting to write in film, I found the place where all of those behavior-based things that I loved doing as a short story writer could be put to great aesthetic use. And so I picked up a new skill, and I'm having fun with it. Cool. Continuing to write for theater from the perspective now of a showgirl who writes it down, and then having picked up a new set of skills.
Nice.
And I can say that now I've added a third thing to it, which is television. Because now I'm interested in building and exploring this piece for television as well.
Okay.
So I'm kind of using this same base material as a way of exploring different modalities of storytelling. I think it's actually a great education lesson and case study. There's certain things that you do know. You know who these characters are, what the circumstance is. Now, how do you go from medium to medium and learn what the different mechanisms of those different media are by writing a piece inspired by this source work for those different media?
Here's the thing. As much as we would love to learn about that, because that is a very interesting subject, we're against the red line. Yeah, we're right up against the time limit. So now, let's quickly go over what you've got out now, or what you're going to have come out. So the movie Softer is currently in the festival circuit. That is correct. Is there something coming up really soon for it to be shown?
No. So we're still negotiating showings for 2020. So look out. And one of the best ways to hear about Roger Q. Mason happenings is on my Facebook. You just search me, Roger, middle initial Q for Quincy Mason. And then the other way you can find me is on my Instagram. It's ROGER, the letter Q, .Mason. So RogerQ.Mason, at Roger Q. Mason on Instagram. Those are the two social media that I'm on most often. And so as things develop for Softer the film, be rest assured that I will be posting on there. There's also a link, an Instagram link for the film called Softer Film. So there's that as well. Now, what else is going on for me in the next coming months is as follows. Softer the play will be presented at Son of Semele Theatre in Los Angeles from December 12th to 15th. So for those of your listeners who are in LA, it'll be part of Quick Creation Festival at Son of Semele Theatre. That's December 12th to the 15th. And then in January, I have a showcase of another play of mine at Company of Angels. It's called Burns in Their Veins. And it's an exploration of the transition from Mexican to American California. And then there are a couple of other things that I'm not quite able to say just yet, but in the spring, look out for a big show. So you'll have to stay on my social media stuff to find out about that, because I know they're going to be releasing some information soon. But what I can say is that the showgirl has written something down, and she's going to be singing it for the people.
All right, that's great.
There it is.
You got lots of irons in the fire.
There's lots of irons in the fire, baby, and you got to hope that one of them's going to iron out the kinks.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show.
Oh, thank you all so much for having me. I had a fabulous time, and maybe we can do this again sometime and we can get into TV.
Absolutely.
All right.
Hi, this is Ginny Koch, author of the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series from Daw Books, part of Penguin Random House, and you are listening to the Two Gay Geeks Webcast.
She never got that right. And I don't think that was the wine either.
Well, I think
maybe
a little bit.
Maybe helped a little bit. Yeah. But she always had trouble getting that out.
Anyway, yeah. Oh, we love you, Jeannie. Here's a few selected birthdays for November 25th through December 1st, 2019. November 25th, Jeffrey Hunter.
Captain Pike.
Captain Pike.
The original.
The original in the Cage.
The Cage, that's right.
Actually, the original pilot as well. So
well, that was the original pilot.
That was the original pilot. Yeah. Do you know he died in 1969?
Yes, I did, actually.
It was after he suffered a stroke.
I didn't know it was a stroke, but I knew that he died.
He suffered a stroke, and then he fell and injured himself. And during the surgery, his complications of surgery.
Dear.
Sad news. Also on November 25th, Ricardo Montalban.
Oh, so
his
Pike and
Corinthian level.
Rich Corinthian level. So Captain Pike and Khan.
Yes, he was also in Fantasy Island and Khan in the original series and 2 movies. And
this gets even better. This gets even better. Go on. Well, John Larroquette, who played Maltz in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock.
Yes, is the next one. John Larroquette. And a friend of ours, Mr. Bailey Hall. Mm-hmm. Happy birthday, Bailey. He's a senior this year.
Oh, my God, we're getting old.
He's getting so old.
He's almost taller than you.
I know he is. November 26th, Tina Turner, who was married to Ike Turner, who has a relation to the Tulsa Scene and Gary Busey and Mazeppa Pompazoides Uncanny Film Festival and Camp Meeting.
Okay, I did not
all
know
of that.
I didn't know that there was that connection.
Yeah, Gary Busey played with Ike.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also on November 26th, Charles Schulz, the creator of Peanuts and Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown, Snoopy, all that. We got to see the Charles Schulz museum when we were in the San Francisco area some years back.
Yeah, it was kind of a neat little
it was kind of neat
thing. Also, Robert Goulet and his Cajun Christmas. Can't forget that.
No.
And Rich Little.
My God, who was such a staple, unlike Mike Douglas and Merv Griffin.
All of those. And a good friend of ours, Buffy Linder.
Happy birthday,
Buffy. What? I don't know. What am I saying? What are we talking about?
I have no idea.
November 27th, Bruce Lee.
Oh, there'll never be another one like him.
Huh?
Never be another one like him.
I know. I thought you said, I don't even like him.
What?
What?
No, there'll never be another one like him. I think the guy was awesome.
And Jimi Hendrix.
Respect the classics, man.
That's what I wrote down. And do you remember that Pepsi commercial? It was.
Oh, yes.
James, what's his middle name?
I can't remember.
Hendrix, and he's walking down the street. On one side's a Coke machine, and on the other side's a Pepsi machine. On the Coke side is the accordion seller, and on the Pepsi side is
the guitar.
is the guitar.
The shop with the guitar in the window.
And they play a little bit of Purple Haze. Was it Purple Haze?
I believe it was Purple Haze, and played this game of What If.
Yeah, and then so they play the Purple Haze on the guitar, and they say, it could have been this, or indicate it could have been this.
Yeah, he could have gone for the Coke.
The accordion playing Purple Haze. It was so funny.
Yeah, that
was close. Also on November 27th, Bill Nye, the science guy.
We had a really weird interaction with when we went to see Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
That was kind of far out.
It was really weird because Neil forgot what time zone he was in.
Of all people, Neil, please.
And And so he calls Bill Nye, and he's not prepared.
He's not ready for the segment.
He's not ready for the phone call yet.
He wasn't ready for the segment. He was an hour off.
So anyway, that was kind of
But
fun.
it was kind of far out to have that live interaction with Bill Nye during the show.
Exactly. And also on November 27th, Anders Celsius, who was a Swedish astronomer and mathematician, and he proposed the Celsius system, or the centigrade system. November 28th, Karen Gillan. Come on, Pond.
Yeah.
And Nebula. Randy Newman, composer extraordinaire. Oh, my gosh.
Of course, the moment I see that name, the first thing that comes to my head is Sure People Got No Reason.
Well,
because that was the song that made him huge.
Yeah, but there's also, all of the Pixar stuff that he did.
Well, as a composer, the man's amazing.
Yep. And Alfonso Cuarón, and also a filmmaker friend of ours who is actually a property mistress in her own right and did all kinds of wonderful things. Linda Reese. November 29th, Don Cheadle, who is War Machine.
Yes.
And we have C.S. Lewis.
Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes. And Chadwick Boseman.
Oh, so Chadwick...
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, no kidding. So you have... oh, my goodness. I can't remember his character's name. It went out of my head. From Black Panther.
Yeah.
But he and Don Cheadle sharing the same birthday. How cool.
Interesting, yes. Gaetano Donizetti, a famed composer who wrote L'Elysée d'Amour, which we're going to see next year at Arizona Opera, The Elixir of Love. It's probably one of my favorite of his operas, Donizetti operas. It's just a fun romp and has one of my favorite basso... comedic bass roles, Dr. Dulcamara.
The Basso Buffo.
Yeah. Also, November 29th, Christian Doppler, who discovered the red shift.
And the blue shift.
And the blue shift. And, well, in essence.
Yeah.
In essence, that's what it is. The Doppler effect.
You experience the Doppler effect every time you're like, you're standing on a street and you hear a siren come your way, and as it approaches you, the pitch gets higher, and as it goes away from you, the pitch gets lower.
Oh, is that the red and blue, the lights on the...
That's exactly...
On the car?
Yes!
Oh, is that what it is?
That's exactly what it is.
The red shift.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. And Howard K. Stern.
No relation.
Your favorite friend.
No.
No?
Howard K. Stern, the attorney.
I was trying to fool you.
Because he was the attorney for... Oh, I can't remember her name now. She was this... She was this sort of a very buxom young lady who married this really old guy.
Oh, actually, yeah. Her birthday was here sometime.
Yeah, it was just not long ago.
Too, yeah.
But he was her attorney.
Yep. And also on November 29th, Gertrude Jekyll was the wife of Dr. Jekyll.
Okay.
Who turned into Mr. Hyde, but she didn't turn into Mrs. Hyde.
No, okay. No. I'm following your lead here. It's a fact. I'm following
Actually, she was a British horticulturalist. She designed over 400 gardens.
Oh, my goodness.
She was a premier influence among British and American gardening enthusiasts. And if you look at the map of a flower bed, it kind of resembles my grandmother. So I would imagine that she followed some of her designs, shall we say. Also, we have several Facebook friends: Renee Baum, Jessica Marino, Douglas Kinsman, who is Mr. Mama, and also Michael Cohen. Happy birthday, Michael. November 30th, Samuel Clemens.
Mark Twain.
Also known as Mark Twain. Wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. He always had kittens around.
He loved kittens.
He loved kittens. He also played a role in Events of the Future that helped in the future timeline.
Well, if you're talking Star Trek: The Next Generation, then yes.
Oh, that's not the historical documents? Gotcha.
You're really crossing time streams there, buddy.
Yep. Also, Ridley Scott.
Great Scott.
Blade Runner, and
he's the brother of Randolph Scott.
Yes, Randolph
Scott.
Anyway, but did you know that Blade Runner is no longer in the future as of Tuesday?
As of Tuesday, no, it's in the past. Yep. How tragic! And I want my flying car.
Yeah,
although the Earth is about to look that depressing.
Exactly. November 30th, also Shirley Chisholm, 1968, first woman of color to be elected to Congress. 1972, the first woman of color to run for president. In fact, the first woman to run for president. So she had quite the career. Also, Dick Clark,
who was the world's oldest teenager.
Exactly. And David Yates.
Professor Lupin, if I'm not mistaken.
No. He was director of...
my bad.
Of several of the Harry Potter movies, as well as the Fantastic Beasts. And actually, if you look him up on IMDb, it has Fantastic Beasts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 listed.
Oh, I didn't realize
pre-production on 3, 4, and 5.
I mean, okay. I mean, they're only now talking about what's coming out of 3.
I know.
I mean, nothing spoken about 4 or 5 yet.
Exactly. Also, Facebook friends Karen Kane and Robert Bateman. December 1st, Richard Pryor.
Oh, what's more to say about him?
What more can you say? Bette Midler. What more can you say? Divine Miss M.
Sophie Tucker.
Wonderful concert. I mean,
I love her shows.
Does a great show. And Treat Williams, who
we just saw him not long ago.
The funniest one of everybody in that film in the Ritz.
Movies and the Ritz is hilarious.
Oh my God,
I just love that movie.
And also Matthew Shepard, who would have been he died just before his 22nd birthday. So it's sad and interesting. Last year. 20 years to the day almost that he was murdered. Mm-hmm. His ashes were entombed in
I saw that, yeah.
National Cathedral. Also, and good friend of ours, Aaron Blunt. Happy birthday, Aaron. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Here, you and I and the brain are listening to Krypton Radio. Sci-fi for your Wi-Fi. Love.
Go give a listen to our friends over at Krypton Radio, a 24-hour geeky internet radio station.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
Okay, we got to get right to this because we're running out of time. We got some feedback here. This is regarding our Alexander James Adams interview that we did at CocoCon. Now, we'll have the link for this in the show notes for this episode. But this was a standalone that we did, and we ran on our website. We got a comment from Lou Ballantine, who left this comment on YouTube. Interesting. I'm extremely new to Alexander's music, but it speaks to me so much. I've been listening through and taking the time to really listen to each song. I've had a rotation of 3 of them stuck in my head pretty much constantly since I found his music. I'm pretty excited to find this interview. I'm only 8 minutes in, but I'm enjoying it immensely. Now, he has an edit here. I also, though I don't know if it's a divisive thing to say, as a trans person myself, and I've only listened to Alexander's music in the last few months, so I was already aware of his transition upon first listening to his older stuff, sensed a masculine energy in his pre-transition work, as was mentioned here. I thought I might also have been imagining it because of hindsight, so it's good to hear I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Alexander will be thrilled with your feedback there.
Exactly.
And then the gift that keeps on giving,
oh
people.
My gosh.
Dragon Riders of Pern, what we know, not so much. Got a comment from Dr. Mike. He says, the film adaptation needs to be patterned after Game of Thrones. With so many beloved books in the Dragon Rider series, a single film would never do them justice. Lord of the Rings did a fair job, but they broke up The Hobbit into 3 movies because of the depth of content. And that is our feedback for today.
You can leave comments on our Facebook page and on tggeeks.com on each article and or episode. You can also leave comments on Twitter and Instagram, as well as YouTube, as a couple of these have done recently. And you could also give us leave us a voicemail if you call our voicemail feedback line, and we'll play that on air, and you can be famous too. You can call 469-TG-GEEKS, and that is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice. Well, we don't have a What's Up Next time, but I can tell you that we're going to have Jenny Koch with episode 250.
That's right.
So she was the very first interview that we did, and she's coming back for our 250th episode to talk to us.
Which almost coincides to the day.
Almost exactly to the day. I think it's
with interview
like one
number
day
1.
off.
Yeah, the very first
5
time
years later. And it's also December 1st is World's AIDS Day concert, December 1st, 2019, at the Parsons Center for Health and Wellness at 6 p.m., featuring performers singing songs from the AIDS Quilt Songbook. There will also be a display of panels from the Names Project Memorial Quilt. And as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Please buy their stuff if you see them out and about. Talk to them, chat them up, tell other people about their stuff, buy their stuff. Please support independent creators. The Joshua Tree Feeding Program, 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV/AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal counties. They are set up just like a store, so the clients can pick the foods that they want to take home, so no food is wasted. They are an all-volunteer organization. Please consider supporting Joshua Tree either through a single gift or a monthly recurring gift. You can go to jtfp.org. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Well, we don't have the time.
Very quickly, I just want to say that we experienced something yesterday.
Saturday was amazing.
The Met Opera live in HD, the production of Akhenaten, which is by Philip Glass. It was absolutely
I loved it.
Hypnotic.
I just loved it.
Amazing. So if you have an opportunity, please go see it on the Encore on December 4th.
Right.
So that's all we're going to say about it. We got to move on.
Okay, here's a quick weekly recap, and we will be having the links for each of these articles in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. Starting off with Sunday, November 17th, Dr. Zombie, Monster Family Physician number 75. And then on Monday the 18th, TG Geeks episode number 248. On Tuesday the 19th, a new HBO series, Avenue 5, debuts January exclusively on HBO. You want a good laugh? Take a look at that trailer. It's hilarious.
Look at the trailer. Oh, my gosh.
All I have to say is Hugh Laurie.
Yes, exactly.
It's hilarious. Wednesday, the 20th, Moonlight Sonata, Deafness in 3 Movements on HBO, December 11th. That's an interesting documentary. And then on Thursday, the 21st, 'tis the season for a queer holiday movie. Finally, Interesting press release. Check that one out. And then on Friday the 22nd, News Sushi number 88, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. And we close it off with Saturday the 23rd, Ben's Gay Book Breakdown. Breakaway, a gay sports romance is all guilty pleasure with hope. And that is what we ran this last week.
You can find all these things at tggeeks.com, as well as entries on our Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. And now, let's see.
Have to give a couple of shout outs to some places that we publish our content from time to time. First, we get our content redone occasionally on the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News, and that is put out by the human Arkle, Brian Weber. You can find the Post Dispatch News by finding him on Twitter, and you can find him by searching at Arkle, A-R-K-L-E. And speaking of Arkle, he has the Shameless Cash Grab. He just finished off Season 3 on YouTube. He's wrapped up all 20 movies. Check it out. And you can find it by going to youtube.com/Arkle Studios. Again, all one word, A-R-K-L-E-S-T-U-D-I-O-S. We must give some shout-outs to a couple of Facebook groups for also republishing our content. And, well, actually, no, they allow us to share our content. So first,
share.
Share. That's much better than share away. So first, two, Gay Geeks After Hours. When I asked their moderators if we could share, they did say, please share away. Their URL is facebook.com/group/Gay Geeks After Hours, and that's all one word. And then to The Gay Geek for also allowing us to share our lovely stuff there. Their URL is facebook.com/groups/The Gay Geek, all one word. And we must give special thanks there to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Moderator.
Yeah.
Moderator, Jeremiah Reeves. Thank you so much. And we can be found, as usual, on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. I mean, that's everywhere practically now. I'm finding new places all the time that have picked us up. Also, check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays, and listen to their other content. They are a 24-hour geeky internet radio station. You heard the promo that we did, Pinky and the Brain, earlier. And please rate us and review us on iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. In fact, a lot of people listen to us on YouTube because
it's actually easier in some ways.
Huh?
It's easier in some ways.
It's easier in some ways because you can put that and start it playing in the background, and you can surf the internet while you listen. And it's just...
And you can play it if you have an iOS device, or any kind of mobile device. All you have to do is just fire up the YouTube app.
There you go. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We'll have several links on the page, and remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Peace.
Cheers.